Welcome everybody to New Heart, New World. I'm Rasika Manjari and thank you so much for joining me today. Now, today I'm going to be trying to broach a topic very dear to our hearts, and that is the topic of love and the self. Now, this is a big topic, and as I said, it's a topic dear to our hearts, the topic of love. However, because it's such a big topic, and I'm certainly no expert in the field of love, I also have some help and support from authoritative sources on the subject of love, which I'll refer to you as we go on. Now, is love something worth fighting for? Or is it just a cliche? Because whatever it is, we want it, and we want it badly, and we would do anything to get it. Because this love, it seems to be elusive for many of us. However, it seems to be the focus of our intention and also the driving force for much of what we do. But what actually is it, and why do we want it so much? I mean, why don't we want chaos and disturbance and despair and conflict? No, we don't want those things. We want love. And unfortunately, however, the true essence of love in its purity and its eternality is elusive for many of us on an ongoing basis. So, love can take many forms and is experienced by many of us in so many different ways. And love can be expressed at so many different levels. And we know that we want love, and most of us want to also give love. So the problem is, however, that we can't give something that we don't have ourselves. And this is where the concept of self-love comes in. So if we don't have love of ourselves to start with, then how can we offer love to anyone else or anything else around us as we move through in our lives? So this self-love is a priceless kind of love, and it's the kind of love that is very precious, in a sense that when it's had, it is the source and the fountain of all other kinds of love that one can experience from others and also from the self. Because ultimately, as it's said, loving yourself isn't vanity, it's sanity. And this is so true in the sense that if we don't have love for ourselves, then basically everything goes south. And this is where many of our problems stem from, is that we don't have that self-regard, that self-esteem, that love of self that carries us to where we need to go in terms of our relationships with ourselves and also with each other. So the question is, how do we love ourselves? I mean, what does that entail? What is involved in loving ourselves? I mean, do we just give ourselves a big hug every morning, or do we, make sure we have a piece of chocolate cake every day? I mean, sometimes, this is, a little bit of an extreme reflection of what self-love is. However, some of us are fooled into thinking that really self-love is about giving ourselves the treats that we need, or doing ourselves the favors that we need to maintain a certain, steadiness of mind and bodily health and mental health. And of course, these are all aspects of self-love. However, it doesn't stop there, because self-love is a very internal experience, and it's a realized experience. So, and we know that often, when we do give ourselves those treats at times, then, there comes in the overindulgence philosophy, where by, those very things that we think will make us feel good and that will, lift our spirits and make us feel loved, those very things can be our downfall in the form of excesses, and that can cause its own difficulties and even disease. So, love in all forms that we know of, in our experience of it, because most of us aren't experts at love in any of its forms. We experience love often to be disappointing in so many ways, and that can be in our relationships with, our family, our friends, our children, our pets, our environment, each other, and basically with ourselves. So there can be a certain disappointment in a sense that we're left feeling unfulfilled, or there's some aspect that causes agitation to our hearts or to our minds, and there is often some kind of difficulty that we need to overcome in our connection with our environment and ourselves. And we can be forgiven for feeling disillusioned and even wanting to give up altogether on the concept of love, but we definitely want it. And this is evidenced in the relationships. We go from one to the other until we feel that we have found that resting place for our heart where we can relax and know that we are loved and that we can give love. However, as mentioned before, that can be a very elusive kind of experience. So this is where I turn to the authorities on love that I mentioned before. So now these authorities are actually the ancient writings of the Bhakti Yoga tradition, which outline love in the most true and pure essence of its form. Because, in our experience as humans on this planet Earth, our experience of love is probably not always in its purest form, and we rarely have access to that kind of love because there are certain ways in which we can experience it. However, in today's society, we're not really given those opportunities or taught how to purify our love, or to make sure that our love is connected with the source of all love, which is what will ultimately translate into self-love. And of course, when we have self-love, then it's much easier to love other living beings. So these authorities on love of the ancient Bhakti Yoga writings and teachings and philosophy say that kind of love that makes us dance with abandon and sing upon high is actually the natural inclination of all of us as living entities. And to further elaborate, it is not only the motivation for what we do from day to day, but it is the ultimate goal of our human life. So it's the highest goal of human life. So we can rest assured that our hankering for love, our desire for love, our search for love, our relentless pursuit of love is actually not misplaced. It's normal. It's actually part of being human. And that is what we're here to find ultimately, is how to achieve the greatest love of all. So, we may show our impressive battle scars or our still bleeding wounds, or ultimately our hearts shattered into a million pieces. And then we may say, well, show me love. But love is actually much closer than we usually realize. It is as close as our very own selves. It is actually the essence of our being. Now, this might sound a little bit intangible, but let me go on and explain a little bit about how we can access this love that is as close as our own hearts. So that essence that the authorities on love, the Bhakti Yoga tradition and texts tell us, the essence of the love that they speak of is that of the soul. And the soul is the life force and center of every living being. It is the powerhouse of life, and of course is the source and ultimate destination of our love. However, love implies an exchange. So usually love in its highest forms is between at least two living beings, so that the experience can be mutual and that each one can benefit from the experience of evolution and growth that comes with these experiences of love. So the Bhakti Yoga tradition not only says that love is the innate capacity and actually ultimate reality and truth of who we really are as human beings, but they also say that the soul is not alone in the region of the heart in each living being. The soul is accompanied, and this is where that mutual exchange comes in, that loving exchange that comes with love of the highest order. Now, in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, mantra meditation is actually used to cultivate this loving exchange, the loving exchange between the individual soul and the soul that accompanies it in the living being's very own heart. Now, this accompanying soul is actually the supreme and divine soul, and many of us have a concept or a sense of some kind of supreme power or supreme being that actually has a very benevolent approach to us as living beings and actually has our highest good and is our best well-wisher at heart. So this supreme divine being, or Krishna as is referred to in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, accompanies us in our heart and is waiting, ready for the time when we choose to make that connection with him in loving exchange. Because ultimately, when that loving exchange is made, when that decision to go forward into the most fulfilling experience that can be had by a human being, when that decision is made, then that's the beginning of our true experience of love of the highest order, and that is when happiness begins to be ours on an ongoing and everlasting basis. So this love that is cultivated through mantra meditation is an unconditional loving exchange. There are no conditions associated with it, and therefore there is no disappointment or distress or fallout from it in a sense. It's actually because we have found our true home. It is where we belong, and it is our ultimate destination, this loving connection with the Supreme Soul in our heart. So self-love, as I mentioned earlier, is actually a byproduct of this connection of divine love. So when we can finally bring ourselves to take that step to make that connection, then self-love automatically follows. And of course, metaphorically, when our chocolate fountain is overflowing, then of course we can freely distribute chocolate to everybody else because our love is there, it is part of us, and we recognize that we are actually ourselves beings of supreme and divine love. And we are able to distribute that kind of love to anyone and everyone because we are of that essence ourselves. But however, we just have to recognize that, and this is where mantra meditation comes in. Over time and with repetitive practice, it actually programs our mind and heart to connect and to, be on that same wavelength of this divine love that surrounds us all the time, but that we just often are not tapped into. So this is where we understand that ultimately what we give is also what we receive, and not always from the places that we expect or in the ways that we expect. So our giving comes in the form of our connection with the mantra, because that is our form of exchange with the Supreme Divine Soul, who in turn reciprocates in loving connection. And this is revealed to us in our daily lives, our experiences and our internal experience, which we can't deny, and no one can tell us is not true because we feel it within ourselves, that feeling of being intensely loved and experiencing the ultimate expression of love in its highest form through that connection with the divine. So I will chant the Maha Mantra with you now, and I'm sure many of you are already familiar with it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So as the supreme authorities on the subject of love say, that love is actually our innate predisposition and our nature, and also our natural inclination as human beings, but we just forgot. So with mantra meditation, we can jog our memories and remember who we really are, beings of love. So if you would like to know more about the topic of the Maha Mantra or anything else about Bhakti Yoga and its teachings and philosophy, then please visit my website at newheart-newworld.com. And please join me for many more videos on the secrets and not so secrets of Bhakti Yoga. So until the next video, I wish you all well. Bye for now.